each one of you who's joined us today for this webinar. Ajay, am I audible? I hope.
Yes, sir, you are.
So, welcome to this NABCB webinar for inspection bodies, which we are organizing on the standard ISO IC 17020. So it's almost now 3 years. I think the first webinar was done somewhere in end of April 2020 after the webinar, and it's been a huge success for us to connect with all stakeholders, whether it is the inspection bodies themselves or people working in inspection bodies or any other conformity assessment body who wishes uh, to start inspection activities or to seek accreditation for inspection activities, as well as uh, people who join us from industry, government, and regulators. And as you know, inspection is centuries old. So, and it used to happen in different forms and for different product categories on different sectors. But over the last few decades, there has been an international system which initially uh, developed for laboratories, the testing and calibration laboratories, wherein the ISO standard for accreditation was brought in, and then it was further enhanced to cover all kinds of conformity assessment bodies over the last few decades. And for an ABCB accreditation of inspection body program, this whole program is very important. One, because the industry relies on it. Second, the government and the regulators rely on it extensively. And also, this is the fastest and the fastest growing program for an ABCB, and the largest number of accredited bodies are under inspection scheme only. Uh, we, of course, now it's almost more than 15 years when this program was started, and we have already around 100 inspection bodies accredited as per the international standard 17020. And when I say 100, so each of these body might have multiple offices across India, and each of these inspection bodies, the bigger ones, might have even inspectors more than 1,000. So it's a huge program, and it is all dependent upon the market needs. So as the various sectors in India is growing, and you could all see from the economy, from the various initiatives from the government, and of course, as we tend to increase our exports to other countries, so inspection activity is going to increase. So this program, of course, is not a training, but then to give a overview on what an ABCB is, what do we do, how are we connected in both domestically and internationally, and of course, the standard, the key requirements in the standard ISO IC 17020, and also to tell you that the ISO has already taken up a revision of the standard. So the revision process for revising the standard has already begun at ISO. So the CASCO, the ISO Committee on Conformity Assessment, which is known as ISO CASCO, is leading this effort. So NABCB is also represented in this revision through the national standard body, which is PIS. And two major standards for which NABCB gives accreditation. One is ISO IC 17020, the other one is ISO IC 17024. Both the standards, the revision process has begun, and of course, it might take somewhere around somewhere around 2 years before the next version comes in. And the last version of 17020 was released in 2012, and almost every 5 years, the ISO decides whether they need to revise the standard or reaffirm the standard. So this time it was a ballot. It was which led to revision, which led to decision on revision. So now it will get revised. Uh, as far as NABCB is concerned, you all know we are the national accreditation body within the country. We are part of Quality Council of India, and this you will all hear from my colleagues uh, who would run the presentations for you. And a short presentation is also there on the NABCB accreditation process. How do we uh, what's the process for giving accreditation uh, to the inspection bodies? And with these three small presentations and also giving you an opportunity for Q&A, I believe that this event would be quite helpful, quite useful, uh, considering the wide stakeholders that are connected for this program. Of course, the numbers are going down because I believe there's enough sensitization that NABCB has done over the last 3 decades. I fully remember in the very first program which we did, it was around 700 participants, and we were really amazed, and we were really it was encouraging for us to continue such programs. 700 people connecting for the first webinar. That's the beauty of this virtual events that's happening, and this will become a norm also. So just to also tell you about various regulators within the country, they recognize NABCB and they prescribe NABCB accreditation when it comes to inspections in their sectors. For example, PNGRB, which was the first regulatory regulator, which is there for oil and gas sector, they had an MOU with us, and under that MOU, it is prescribed that all inspections as per the PNGRB regulations in the oil and gas sector would be done through NABCB accredited bodies. So same is the case with Food Authority, FSSAI. They do also recognize our accredited inspection bodies and certification bodies. There are other, for example, DGQA, which is the defense arm for quality assurance, and they also prescribe an ABCB accreditation for the inspection bodies. Bureau of Energy Efficiency also uses our accredited inspection bodies, and there are many other regulators, and we are trying to increase the reach of the NABCB accreditation and the NABCB accredited bodies in the years to come. And of course, last 3 years or 4 years have seen tremendous jump of use of accredited bodies. And the one more example which I can cite is the Bureau of Indian Standards. So that was actually a major shift also over last, I think about by the time COVID set in 2020. So they took a policy decision, and after our persuasion that they would use our accredited inspection bodies for factory inspection. So they have about 40,000 licenses for the BIS mark. So those manufacturers who manufacture product under the BIS mark. So they previously used to be the BIS officers who used to do factory inspections. Now it is our accredited inspection bodies who are doing factory inspections, and that's been done. This model has been adopted successfully. So there are other big PSUs who've been using, for example, Bharat Petroleum, Indian Oil. So lots of other public sector organizations, they're increasingly using our accredited bodies. And not only the inspection bodies, but other conformity assessment bodies like certification bodies or validation verification bodies. I could see somebody writing focus applicability on food sector. Of course, as I briefly said, we are recognized by Food Authority. If you look at the food safety regulation, which is 2018, which is available on the FSCI website, the FBO needs to be assessed for food safety. They need to be inspected. So therein they are using our accredited inspection bodies and certification bodies. So not taking much of time, and you will hear lots of information in the presentations, and of course you will get an opportunity to ask questions or to seek clarifications. But I would say that that's just a beginning, and please remain connected with us through emails or through uh, even our phones, so that if there is uh, any information that you require, you can take it from NABCB. Whatever stakeholder you represent, whether it's industry, regulators, or whatever it is, so you can always reach out to us, and we'll always be there to support you and provide that information. So welcome again, and my three colleagues, let me also introduce them. Ajay Sharma, who's joint director with us, Anandeep Gupta, who's also a joint director with us, and Varsha Mishra, who's a deputy director with us. So these three are key officers in NABCB, and they look after all kinds of operations, whether it's inspection bodies or certification bodies, and they will take you through this uh, entire webinar. And they are long experience, I think more than 2 decades, each one of them having long experience in variety of domains, not only in conformity assessment but also in regulatory and accreditation activities. So if you have any questions, please uh, you can type in the chat box or raise at the end in QA session. So thank you all for joining us for this webinar, and I hope it would be quite useful for you too. Thank you. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you, sir, and for setting the introductory context and the discussing the avenues of accreditation in various regulatory and industrial sectors. This webinar consists of three brief webinars. One is the presentation on the 1720 and its various clauses in brief. The second is on the accreditation criteria and its importance by NABCB. And the third is the accreditation and its international equivalence. So we are going to take up all these presentations one by one. Two things. You'll be shared all the PPTs which are displayed here. You can download them also from our website. Second thing is any questions or clarifications are always welcome. Only at the end of the completion of all the three webinars, the presentations. So we first start with the ISO 17020 standard. Let me share. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. So before we move on directly to the standard of ISO 17020, let us first have an acquaintance on what inspection is all about, because that's the definition around which the entire activities and the standard would revolve. Inspection is basically an examination. It can be examination of some material or some products. Products can be any finished products. So, for example, you have 100 tons of food grain, or you have an installation which can be a chemical plant, or it can be a plant which can be simply a cement plant, or a process which can be the various the quality checks, or the welding processes which are there, the work procedures similarly, and the services there. So apart from the examination, the second dimension is that it may involve to determine the conformity with respect to the requirements. So inspection can have two aspects. One is the examination, and second is to determine whether the object meets the requirement or not. And obviously, then there is a reporting to the client and the authorities wherever required. Inspection would have some specific parameter, because when we inspect an object or a process or a service, we'll have some, it will be in terms of the quantity, in terms of the tonnage or numbers or some meters, the quality that can be, the quality can be the material of the product, for example, if it is stainless steel or a carbon steel, the safety of the installation, which can be in terms of the personal safety or the plant safety of the various installation, or a fitness for purpose, which is basically the intended use of any product or a plant. Introduction to inspection is important because inspection is involved right from the concept, that is the design stage, till the end of life stage. So an entire life cycle, right from the design, the procurement, the manufacturing, the execution, the construction, commissioning, decommissioning, the inspection is involved. There can be a slight overlap between the testing and certification activities as well, because they all three have some common characteristic. However, an important difference between the inspection and the other testing and certification is that inspection involves professional judgment, the experience and the skill of the inspector, where a specific standard requirement is not mentioned. So an inspector can do a professional judgment when there is a general requirement that needs to be assessed or examined. Now we move to the main standard, which is on the ISO IC 17020, published in 2012. And it says the conformity assessment and requirements for various types of inspection bodies. These are the various clauses of the standard. So we'll take them one by one in brief. So clause 4 is on the general requirements, which says that there's an impartiality, independence, and confidentiality. The impartiality and independence are the key pillars of ISO 17020. We'll see them in detail in forthcoming slides. And confidentiality is a lighter term, which you know that the confidentiality of the data information of the client or of the inspection body, or the stakeholders that need to be kept confidential. So when we talk of the independence of the inspection body, the independence can be defined in terms of type A, B, and C. And what is the first advantage of the independence? So independence helps in giving confidence to the clients, to the end user, that the inspection body will do the inspection impartially. It will be fair. It will not be under any influence. So to demonstrate that, the inspection bodies are termed as independent third-party inspection agency, which is the industrial norm, and in accreditation parlance, it is known as the inspection body. To understand independence, basically, independence shows what is the relation of their inspection body with respect to the item or the product which is inspecting. So in what way there is a linkage between the inspection body and the product that it is being inspected. So this relationship is defined under the independence. And impartiality is basically in what way the inspector as an individual or inspection body as a organization can be influenced so that the outcome of inspection is affected. So independence is basically the relationship between the IB and the product, whereas the impartiality is basically to what extent the individual organization can be influenced with respect to the item that is being inspected. Now, when we talk of type A inspection body, the type A inspection body, an important point to note, what we call third-party inspection agency conventionally is the type A inspection bodies only. Type B and type C do not qualify for a third-party inspection agency. So when we talk of type A inspection body, there are certain requirements. What are those? First, it says the inspection body and their inspectors, they should not be engaged in any activities that poses a conflict on their independence of judgment. So they should not be engaged in any activity that is conflicting with their judgment, with the outcome of the inspection. Now, in what way should not be linked? In what way they should not be engaged? So it says that the inspection body, the TPI, should not be involved in the design, manufacture, supply, installation, purchase, own, use or maintain the items inspected. Say, for example, if you are engaged in the design, manufacture, supply, installation, purchase, use of say the computers, you should not be inspecting the computers prima facie. And the inspection body shall not be a part of the legal entity. So there is a case where there is a legal entity and the inspection body is a part of that legal entity. So the inspection body should not be carrying out the inspections for the items which are being designed, manufactured, supplied, installed, owned by the legal entity, the parent company. Now there's a second case wherein there's an inspection body which is a separate legal entity and that is linked to its parent company or to its sister concern or to its parent organization, which is a different legal entity. In that case, the standard gives some relief in terms of that the ownership can be common, the board of directors can be common, the same high level of management reporting is possible, and the contractual commitments is possible, provided all these factors do not affect the outcome of inspection. So as long as the outcome of inspection is not affected, it is not influenced, these reliefs are plausible. Type B inspection body is basically, it's an in-house inspection body, where an inspection body is not a separate legal entity within an organization. It is some sort of a specific department or a division which is catering to the inspection agencies to the inspection of for its own consumption only. So that's a type B inspection. Type C inspection body is basically an inspection body which is within the a legal entity, and the legal entity is involved into the design, manufacture, supply, use of the items inspected. And the inspection body can also do the inspection of the items which are being designed and manufactured by its organization, provided the inspectors and the designers are not the same person. So except this barrier, maintenance of impartiality, it can be classified into a type C inspection body. Then we move to clause 5, which is basically the structural requirements. It's a general clause in terms of the administrative requirement that the inspection body needs to be a legal entity. Then there is a documentation which shows that the inspection body, or the IB in short form, is competent to carry out the inspections. There has to be adequate provision to cover the liabilities. Liabilities do come because suppose you are an inspection body, intentionally or unintentionally, there is some wrongdoing which affects the client's process, outcome, efficiency, or the production. In that case, they may impose some penalties on you as an inspection body, and then you should be able to absorb those penalties. And therein you need to have a liability insurance or some other reserves to cover those liabilities. The contractual conditions have to be defined so that whether you are capable of carrying out such inspections or not. At the level of organization and management, there has to be a proper structure to ensure the impartiality is maintained at all times. The organization is organized to maintain the capabilities of the inspectors. The responsibility and the reporting structures, that is the responsibility and authority matrix, is defined, documented, known to all the inspectors and people associated with the inspection. The technical manager and deputies are there. So technical manager is the key person overall in charge of overseeing the technical issues, resolving them, and in their absence, the deputies need to be there. A job description of all the people involved in inspection needs to be in place. Clause 6 is an important clause of 1720, which basically deals with the three kind of requirements. The personal is the inspection board and the inspectors and the people who are involved into the inspection. For example, the supervisors or the managers or the technical manager, the quality manager who is involved into the inspection activities, the reviewers. Then there are facilities and equipment. But facilities and equipments are basically the equipments that are being used for the inspection, if possessed by the inspection body, and the facilities and the various other tools which are required by the inspection body. And the third is on the subcontracting part. So personal is a very important clause which is put in the standard, and it says that there has to be a competence requirement for all the inspectors, for all the personnel involved in inspection activities. The personnel involved in inspection activities are not only the inspectors, but the reviewers, the project managers, the quality and the technical manager, whosoever is involved into the inspection activities. There has to be defined competence. What is competence? It's a combination of knowledge, skill, experience, qualification put together to perform a specific task for an inspection. Now it says that there has to be sufficient number of persons. They can be either on regular roles or on contracts to suit the inspection activities that are being taken up by the inspection body. Now, when it talks of the competence, it does not stop till that point. It specifies what does the competence mean, because it says about the knowledge. Knowledge means the relevant knowledge, and that is related to the manufacturing of the products, process, services. Now, what is the requirement in terms of the relevant knowledge? First of all, the technology being used for the manufacturing of the products inspected. For example, if it is mobile phones, what is the inspector at least is expected to know in brief or at a macro level, what is the technology that is being currently involved in the manufacturing of the products, or the way in which products are used when the end user uses the product, how the products are used, how the processes are operated, and the services delivered. And so, because in food industry, the services delivered is also equally important. The processes are equally important because it deals with the lot of critical, sensitive, and perishable items as well. And it should also know what are the defects that can occur during the use of the product, right? Then comes the facility and equipment. In this, basically, the requirement is the inspection body, in case is using a software or an app or a web portal for the management of their inspection process, that should be controlled, that should be accessible, and those need to be properly used by the inspectors and the associated personnel. There has to be some rules for the access of the specified facility and equipment, and these kind of tools, we can say, should be available to the inspectors, and they are suitable for the type of inspection that needs to be ensured. Here, clause 6.2.4 is on the facility and equipment, which is related to the inspection body. So the clause says basically whether an inspection body owns or does not own the equipments used for measurement during the inspection, the onus of ensuring the suitability of the measuring equipment lies with the inspection body. So if you are an inspection body, whether you own the equipment or you do not own the equipment, you go to a shop floor, you go to a manufacturer's place, use the manufacturer equipments, still the onus of using right equipment, right measuring instrument lies with you and not with the manufacturer or the owner. So that has to be very clearly understood. So first it says that all the equipments need to be properly maintained as per the documented procedures and instructions. And it says that the equipments which have a significant influence on the results, they need to be calibrated or they need to be supervised, in the sense that it's not that if there are 10 equipments being used in an inspection, all the 10 needs to be ensured for the suitability. Say out of 10, only the 3 equipments wherein the outcomes are critical, only those 3 equipments need to be ensured for suitability. Those 3 need to be ensured before being put in service and as per the documentation. So what is that? So there has to be an overall program of calibration. Calibration in terms of the traceability, the measurement traceability to national international standards. Traceability you will come to know in the forthcoming presentations. And then there has these reference standards. They should be used for only calibration only, and they should not be used for as a working standard. Then there's a point on subcontracting. The standard does not allow subcontracting. However, in specific circumstances, it does allow where there's a normal or unforeseen overload, or your inspectors are incapacitated. For example, we saw in the COVID situation, key facilities or equipments are not fit for use. For example, there's a flash flood or fire or something. Part of the contract involves inspection, but that is not covered by the scope, or it is beyond the capability of or the resources of the inspection. So in such situations, you can do subcontracting, provided inform the customer, and the records of competence of subcontractors need to be maintained. Clause 7 is on the process requirements. Kindly note, this process is not your industrial or manufacturing process. This is the process adopted by an inspection body to plan, execute, monitor your inspection activities. So we'll see one by one in detail. So this clause says that the IB shall use methods and procedures which are defined in the requirements against which the inspection is to be performed. So the inspection is done as per the requirements. The requirements are either in the form of national international standards or regulatory requirements, or the quality assurance plan or the inspection test plan wherein the requirements are defined. So the inspection has to be carried accordingly. If the inspection and the procedures, the requirements are not defined there, the IB shall inform the client. And if there are non-standard methods, such methods and procedures shall be developed by the inspection body, and they should be documented and vetted by the client. Clause 7.2 is an important clause where it deals with the handling of the inspection items and the samples. How do you handle the samples or the items under inspection? So first of all, the samples have to be uniquely defined and identified in terms of a serial number, a tag number, a batch number, or a stamping of the item. IB shall establish whether the item has been prepared. If you are doing the inspection of cable, you need to measure the tensile strength of the outer sheath of the cable. You need to prepare the outer sheath in terms of the length and the dimensions before you can carry out the tensile strength. So in that case, the sample has to be prepared. Any apparent abnormalities noticed by the inspector to be recorded, and there has to be documented procedures to avoid deterioration or damage to inspection samples. So in case there's a scope which says that the samples need to be handled by the inspection body, you need to be careful and need to have a documented procedure how you would be handling the inspection items and samples. Clause 7.4 is a lighter clause which says about what are the parameters that should be there captured in the reports and inspection certificates. So first of all, any inspection report or certificate should include the issuing body identification, the unique identification number and the date of issue, the inspection dates, identification, sign indication of the approval of the authorized personnel, a statement of the conformity if it is applicable, and the inspection results. Complaints and appeals. This is a standard feature of any conformity assessment, wherein you carry out the inspection, there are chances of complaints and appeals. There's a difference between complaint and appeals. Complaint is some sort of dissatisfaction, and that can be done by any of the stakeholders, not necessarily the manufacturer or the client. Appeals is some sort of a request to reconsider the decision that has been granted by an inspection body upon the manufacturer against a specific item. So complaints or appeals, there has to be document procedure to receive the complaints and appeals, evaluate, make decisions on those complaints and appeals. Then the process of handling these complaint appeals, they need to be available. The confirmation whether the complaint relates to inspection activities is responsible, and who is responsible for the decisions at all levels of the handling process. The main thing which needs to be kept in mind that the investigation of the complaint or appeal and the decision thereof, they should not result in any discriminatory actions. Manual system requirements of 17 and 20. So if you are implementing or have implemented ISO 17 or 20, there are some requirements of the manual system also to be ensured. So it says that you have to maintain a manual system, which can be either an option A or option B. Option A is basically where you have an ISO 9001 certificate formally, or option B is where you do not have the 9001 certificate, but you maintain the requirements of the manual system through the option B. So under option A, the requirements are basically the control of documents, records, manual system review, internal audit, and the corrective and preventive actions and the complaints and appeals. So these are the under option A. Option B is you are doing the same, maintaining those requirements which have been mentioned in the previous slide. Then comes the ILAC documents. So these are the key requirements of the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation Association. It has two documents categories: the policy document and the G series of the guidance documents. Some key documents under ILAC are the ILAC P15 is basically an interpretation of the ISO 1720 standard, very useful for the accreditation bodies as well as the inspection bodies. ILAC P10 is on the policy on metrological traceability. ILAC G27 is on the guidance on measurements when they are done as part of the inspection. So some key features of PILAB P15 2020 version. So it says that there has to be a risk analysis detailing the threats that are there from the inspection body personnel. Then if there is a regulator or the scheme owner, there has to be the competence requirement to be identified and addressed. The scope has been defined here in detail. And if there's a calibration frequency, there has to be a rationale, a logic for establishing a particular calibration frequency. If new technology is being used to do the inspection, for example, use of drones or use of smart goggles or use of some specific portal, then those new inspection technologies need to be validated. If the internal audits are frequencies are altered, there has to be a reason for the same. P10 is on the metrological traceability of the measurement results. And the purpose applies to other conformity assessment activities, be it medical laboratories, biobanks, RMPs, and including the inspection bodies. G27 is on the guidance of measurements when they are performed as part of an inspection process. So you're carrying out an inspection, there is a measurement involved into it. How do you do it? So this provides the inspection bodies on how to plan, structure, and perform their measurements as part of the inspection. It also guides the accreditation bodies as to how do the inspection of bodies in such cases. Sorry. So details you'll be seeing in the forthcoming presentation. So that was all from the 17/20 briefing. My colleague Anandi would be taking up the NABCB accreditation criteria and the procedure in detail. Over to you, Anandi.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Shall I open this? Yes, I would be taking you to the various NABCB specific requirements as far as it is concerned to the inspection body. Let me share my presentations. It is visible, sir? Okay. Okay. So there are two, components of my presentation. One is the accreditation criteria. I will talk about what are the technical criteria, technical requirements for an inspection body. Another things, what is the accreditation procedures, what we follow once you apply to NABCB. So let us first take it, the specific criteria. So there are two main requirements as an inspection body you need to comply with. One is already it has been explained by Mr. Ajay Sharma. That is the requirement of 2012, which is an accreditation standard for the inspection body. Another is the additional requirement, or you can say the specific requirements have been stipulated by NABCB. That is the in BCB 110 document. The version of this document, March 2017, which defines the various policies, various technical, criteria for an inspection body. For example, the requirement for subcontracting. If an inspection body you intend to do subcontracting, what is the requirement? What do you need to follow and comply with? What are the requirement for using the NABCB symbol, test report, and certificates or inspection reports? So likewise, there are various other policies. Okay, moving on to the first, that is the accreditation criteria, BCB 1110. You can see in this slide, it comprises various, sections, like it defines the scope, it defines the guidance document, how the scope of accreditation should be, formulated. Then there are various policies like policy on metallurgical testability and calibration, policy on using, if you're using a testing laboratory for the purpose of inspection as a part of inspection, then what are the requirements you need to comply with? What is the policy and the proficiency testing? What is the policy and use of NABCB accreditation mark of the symbol and subcontracting and the inspection standard and the time for inspections? So we'll go one by one. This is very generic. The inspection body who are seeking accreditation from NABCB for inspection in specific technical areas have to comply with the requirement of the 1720 as well as the BCP 1110. So starting with the scope of accreditation, see, NABCB has classified the scope of accreditation for an inspection body based on the broadly on the IF classification sectors. IF classification sectors are widely used in the certifications area, but NABCB has made this as a basis to categorize the scope sectors for the inspection body as well. And see, if you see at the right side of the slide, what are the the various components of this scope of accreditation? See, there will be a field of inspection and the item. Field of inspection means what? Whether it is a design, whether it is a inspection of installations or inspection of the process, inspection of the service or a product. So this field of inspection and the item are classified, or you can say it's classified under IF scope sector. Say, for example, I say the IF scope sector is 4. 4 is the textile. The field of inspection is textile, and then item. What is the item under that textile? That is IF scope sector. You need to define in the scope. Then the range of inspection, whether it is a it's like stage-wise inspections, whether it is a finished product inspection or pre-shipment inspections, initial inspections, pre-inspections, like that. And by using what kind of method, what is the method or the procedure or the standard you are using for doing the inspections. So this is broadly, you have to define the scope like this. Now, coming to the policies, the first policy, section 5 of BCP 1110 talks about the policy and the metrological traceability and calibration. So before we understand the metrological traceability, we must understand what is the calibration. The calibration, the unbroken chain of comparison sales, it's called as calibration. And by doing the right way of calibration to achieve the metrological traceability, it means whatever the results, measurement results generated, that results should be, related to stated references, means some national standards and international standard. So whatever the measurement results are coming out of the calibrations, that should be having a metrological traceability to the SI units. Why this traceability is important? Metrological traceability is important because it harmonizes the measurement results provided by the inspection body across the sectors. It also ensures the confidence amongst the accreditation bodies to maintain the international MRA, mutual recognition arrangements. So the NABCB policy and measurement traceability, it is applicable to applicant as well as accredited inspection bodies. The inspection body shall be able to demonstrate that the calibration of the critical equipment or instruments, say as an inspection body, if you're owning the equipment or the instrument which is used for the calibration, or it may be from the client side also, or the vendor side also. In that case, the measurement results generated by that equipment have to be traceable to the international system of units, that is SI units, what I mentioned earlier. And that should be in accordance with the requirements which is given in another standard, that is the laboratory competence standard, that is ISO 17025. Because the 17025 has a very specific clause on the metrological traceability. Since as an inspection body, if you intend to use, or you calibrate your equipment, so you need to comply with the requirement of the specific requirement of the metrological traceability, which is given in 17025. So the calibrations can be done, either you can get your equipment calibrated directly from the external calibration agency, or you can do the in-house calibration as well. So requirements for the external calibration or in-house calibrations are altogether different. So let us take, if you are using external calibration laboratory or external calibrations agencies for getting your equipment calibrated, the traceability shall be assured by calibration laboratory that can demonstrate competent measurement capability and traceability. So if you are using external agencies, means the agency either it should be accredited or compliant to the requirement, specific requirement of the 1725. We'll talk about what is the if you decide to use the external calibration laboratory, accredited external calibration lab, or if you decide to use the compliant external calibration lab. So these are two terminology which have been used in this criteria document, BCB 110. One is the compliant, other is the accredited. We'll talk about this. So NABCB accepts as an evidence of traceability to national and international standards and measurement from those calibrations performed by. So as a principle, there are two main, you can say the means by which you can achieve the metrological traceability of your equipment, of your measurement. One is either you get your equipment directly calibrated from any accredited means accredited as per 1725 external calibration lab, or you can directly get your equipment calibrated from the National Metrology Institute of India, that is NPL in our case, National Physical Laboratory in India. These are two basic, basic means by which you can achieve the metrological traceability. One is you have to, if you can get your equipment calibrated from an external accredited calibration lab, or you can get it done by directly from the NMI, that is the National Physical Laboratory, which is the National Metrology Institute of India. Okay, now where in-house calibration equipment is accepted, in that case, the inspection body has to ensure that the calibration has been performed in accordance with the relevant criteria for the metrological traceability as defined in 1725. How? By ensuring and demonstrating that the calibrations are performed using valid calibration method. So there are thumb rule is that whosoever is doing the calibration, there are three rules: man, machine, and method. The person who's doing the calibration, he must be aware, he must be well versed with the calibration methods, means he must be competent. Man, okay, then machine, the master equipment from which you are going to do calibrate your the other equipment, and method. You should have a valid method for doing the calibration. So this is what this section talks about. Ensuring and demonstrating that the calibrations are performed by using a valid calibration method by a competent person, maintaining all the environmental conditions for performing that particular calibration, like such as traceability of master equipment, environmental conditions, and the calibration records are adequately maintained. Second, where traceability as stated above is not technically possible. It means what? It means the traceability, achieving the metrological traceability is not at all possible either by using an external calibration lab or by doing in-house calibration. In that case, the inspection body, their client, and other interested parties may agree to use a certified reference materials, which is from a competent supplier. Means competent supplier means that reference material producer must be accredited. There is a standard called as ISO 17034, which is an accreditation standard for the reference material producers. So reference material produced CRM certified reference materials can be used to do the calibrations, but that CRMs or certified reference materials should be from a competent supplier. Now, where inspection body opts them to verify the compliance of an external or in-house calibration laboratory to 1725 requirement instead of using a calibration laboratory accredited as per. So as I mentioned earlier, one is compliant, other is the accredited. So we have talked about accredited ones. Now, if I decide, as inspection body decide to use a compliant calibration laboratory, what are the requirements I need to comply with? I need to check. First is you have to document the procedure to assess an external or in-house calibration laboratory to the applicable requirement of 1725. Applicable requirement means the metrological traceability requirement, which is given in 1725. You have to demonstrate to assess the external in-house calibration laboratory by an assessor who is trained in ISO 1725 as well as on the IB procedures. And also you have to maintain the detailed records of assessing the compliance of that external calibration laboratory to 1725. These are the three requirements you need to comply with when you choose to verify the compliance of an external or in-house calibration laboratory to 1725 instead of using a accredited calibration lab. Now coming to the next policy, the policy on use of testing laboratory as a part of inspection. So when as a part of inspection, the tests are required to be performed in a laboratory. In that case, what happens? Inspection personnel will draw the samples and send it to. If the inspection body has its own laboratory, they can send the samples to its own lab or any independent external laboratory, whatever you have selected. Inspection body shall ensure that wherever you send the samples for testing, that laboratory should be either accredited or the compliant to 1725 requirement for the particular scope of the test being undertaken. So again here, compliant and accredited. If it is compliant, you have to demonstrate as an inspection auditor that the laboratory which is being used by you for the testing as a part of inspection, that laboratory is compliant to the requirement of ISO 1725. If you're using an accredited laboratory for the testing of the samples, then that is already accepted, because that competence of that laboratory has already been declared by a third party authoritative body. The inspection bodies shall not use testing laboratory recommended or decided by its client unless they are either accredited. So it also says if inspection bodies should not use any testing laboratory which are recommended or decided by your client until unless they are either accredited or compliant to 1725. So in all the case, you have to use a compliant or accredited laboratory to 1725 requirements. Now, when at the part of inspection, the inspection body is required to review the test reports for the purpose of assessing conformity to the specific requirement. In that case, testings shall have been carried out in a laboratory which is compliant to 1725. And it has to be established by you as an inspection body or accredited to 1725. The tests for which results are to be reviewed shall either be covered under the accreditation in accordance with 1725, because as an inspection body, when you draw a sample and sending to a laboratory for the testing, you have to make sure that the laboratory where you send the samples, that laboratory, it must be accredited or it must be compliant to the 1725 requirement for that particular scope of test for which you are sending the sample. The compliance of the laboratory performing the test shall have been verified by the inspection body for compliance to 1725 for the test under consideration. So these are some requirements when you use a testing laboratory as a part of inspection for testing of the samples. When as a part of inspection, the inspection personnel is required to witness testing at clients at the vendor's laboratory site. The inspection body has to ensure that these laboratories demonstrate compliance to relevant requirement as prescribed in clause 6.1, that is the personal requirement, 6.2, that is the facility equipment requirement, and the process requirement of 1720. Second, the clients of the vendor's personnel performing such tests must be competent and use the standard or the validated test methods. The inspection personnel conducting the test witness shall also be knowledgeable about the above requirement to be able to assess the same. So this is the requirement when you use the client or the vendor laboratory for the testing of your or witnessing the testing. Now the next policy is it is about the proficiency testing. So what is proficiency testing? See, this terminology is widely used in the laboratory fraternity, wherein this is a means to check the competence of a particular laboratory and we can define this PT as the use of inter-laboratory comparisons, because there are a number of labs who participate in the inter-laboratory comparisons, and one lab would be the nodal lab, which send the sample for testing, and the known value of the test is with the nodal lab, and the participating lab will test the samples and send the reports, send the results back to the nodal lab, and nodal lab will do some statistical analysis and derive the Z score. And there are some parameters based on the range in the Z score, which defines which are the participating labs are passed, which are the outliers, which are the failed. So this is the means of checking the competence of the laboratory, whether the particular laboratory is competent for performing the test or not. So it is the responsibility of the inspection body to check the availability of the appropriate proficiency testing programs, which should best match their day-to-day work, and to select the programs in which to participate as per the scope accreditation. Also, NABCB provides information as may be available to us to all its accredited and applicant inspection bodies about the PT programs which is being organized by ILEC or any APAC PT providers, accredited PT providers. In considering the application of proficiency testing to inspection bodies, the specialized nature of many inspections and the small number of inspection bodies practicing in any one area may make reliance upon externally sourced proficiency testing challenging. And accordingly, the PT should at least involve internally conducted technical witnessing of inspectors and other activities that assure the quality of the inspection activities. So it is all about the policy on proficiency testing. Now coming to the policy on use of NABCB accredited mark. So when you would be able to use the accreditation mark? Once you get accredited by NABCB. Applicant inspection bodies cannot use the NABCB accreditation mark or the symbol on their report or the inspection report or the certificate. See, this mark is not mandatory, but we always encourage all its accredited inspection bodies to use this mark and leverage the benefits of the international acceptance, international equivalence of your inspection reports. Once you decide to use this mark on your inspection report certificate, there are some requirements you need to comply with. What are those? So it is each inspection body's responsibility to ensure that you have to use the NABCB accreditation status in a manner that should not imply that the accreditation is held in areas that are outside the scope of accreditation. It means what? It should always be used on the inspection report or certificate for the scope or the activities which are accredited by NABCB. It should not be used for the scope or the facilities which are beyond the NABCB accreditation. Say if you have branch offices and it has not been declared, it has not been assessed by NABCB. So those branch offices inspection report, you cannot use this NABCB accreditation symbol. Or the scope which is beyond the NABCB accredited scope which has been issued to you after the grant of accreditation. Then in that case also you cannot use the NABCB accreditation symbol for mark on that particular scope or the parameters which are not within the NABCB accredited scope. Well, the use of NABCB accredited mark on the inspection report, the certificate is not mandatory, as I explained to you. Inspection report and certificates which bears the NABCB accredited mark can always be benefited from the acceptance established through the mutual recognition or arrangements or the agreements among the accreditation bodies globally. And the detailed requirements of this policy is given in BCB 202 document, which is available on our website. You can go through in detail. The pictorial representation is also defined in that. What is the NABCB logo? What is the NABCB mark, which can be used by the accredited inspection bodies? And there are various other requirements are also defined there. So now moving on to the policy on subcontracting. As explained by Mr. Ajay Sharma in the first presentation that regarding the subcontracting, NABCB policy is that we do not allow the permanent subcontracting. Means if an inspection body doesn't have any competence or the resources to carry out inspections, they cannot be accredited, because this is the policy of NABCB that you should have. It is allowed in some emergent situations or permissible regions which have been defined by the standard also 17 or 20. Say, for example, there may be a specific equipment breakdown, there may be some emergency, or there may be some, the overloading of the work. In that case, the subcontracting for the particular inspection parameters are permissible, provided there are some requirement you need to comply. So what it says, when an inspection body subcontracts the inspection activities for allowable reasons permissible because as given in ISO 17 and 20, other than on a permanent basis, it should select a subcontractor. So when you decide to subcontract something, some parameter of the inspection, then in that case, you need to select the subcontracting vendors or the subcontractor inspection body, which also meets at least the same independence criteria. If you are a type inspection body, then you have to subcontract your inspection activity to a type A and likewise type B, type C. It shall ensure that the subcontractor inspection body complies with the 17 and 20 as established by the inspection body related to 17 and 20. So you have to also ensure that you have to also check that the inspection body where you are subcontracting the inspection activity. That body is accredited as per 1720, or you need to establish if they are complying, they are declaring that they are complying with the requirement of 1720, then you need to establish that also. So now the next is inspection standards. So it is the responsibility of the inspection body to demonstrate that whatever the inspections are performed, it should be performed in accordance with the international and national acceptable standards. And the standards developed by the customer or your client or the inspection body itself, if it is used to do the inspection, it shall be documented and validated. Next, the time for inspection is taken by inspection body. So inspection body shall have a system for ensuring the required time is spent by the inspection personnel for carrying out for performing the inspections and for monitoring the time spent on the inspections. So now we have completed all the policies of this BCB 110 NABCB accreditation criteria. Now there are some prerequisite salability requirements for NABCB accreditation. As an applicant inspection body, when you intend to apply to NABCB, so there are some prerequisites. You should have a legal entity. Legal entity in terms of it should be a governmental body, or you can say the private limited, the public or LLP or LLC, trust or a society. But partnership forms and the proprietary forms are not allowed by NABCB as an inspection body. You should have operated the inspection activity for at least 6 months and completed at least 2 inspections in the particular group of scope for which you are seeking accreditation. And also you should have carried out minimum 1 internal audit as well as 1 management review meetings. So these are some prerequisites before you apply to NABCB. You have to meet it. Now, accreditation criteria is completed. Next is the accreditation procedure. So once you familiarize yourselves with the accreditation requirement and NABCB accreditation requirement as explained in this presentation, and you submit the application to NABCB by meeting all the prerequisite requirement, then the NABCB will, review or do the initial scrutiny of your applications for its whether all the documents and the records which are required along with the application form or the CRMs cross-reference matrix are complete in order or not. If there is any deficiency, it will be informed to you. You need to submit the rest of the documents which is lacking in the application. And once the application is completely submitted in a complete manner and found okay at our end, then the application shall be formally registered or recorded, and along with that, the letter of acknowledgement would be sent to you. The letter of acknowledgement will comprise the details of the assessment team also who have been nominated to do the document review process, DRR process, and the initial office assessment and the witness, along with their mandates. So you got the acknowledgement letter, you got the details of the assessment team, and you will also will get the an opportunity to identify any conflict of interest with the nominated team at each and every stages. So that appointed team will start doing the document review process. What is the document review process? Document review process, is nothing but the application documents, what you have submitted along with the application. There is a CRM, that is cross-reference matrix, which is a checklist which needs to be filled up by the inspection body as per the documentation compliance is concerned, because the checklist is nothing, just it comprises all the requirement of the ISO 17 or 20 standard, and you need to mention the documentation compliance against each column, against each clause in the next column. And that is the checklist which is being used by the nominated team to do the DRR process, document review process. The team would submit the document review report to NABCB, and then NABCB will share with you. There may be some findings, some deficiency, discrepancies in the document review report, which needs to be complied with by some taking actions or by submitting the required documentation or changes. And if the document review report is complete in all the order and all the deficiencies have been addressed by you, then the team would recommend for the initial office assessment directly. So see here on-site assessment. This is initial office assessment, but between the DRR process and the initial office assessment, there is a optional step that is called a pre-assessment or preliminary visit, which always happens when the issues of DRR are unresolved, or you can say you could not address, you could not resolve those issues. In that case, the pre-assessment is planned with your consent, wherein the team leader of the nominated team would visit your office for 1 Monday, and he will discuss with you the issues raised in the DRR which could not be resolved at that moment. But this is an optional step. This is not a routine process. Otherwise, if DRR is okay, all this will resolve, we'll directly go to the initial office assessment, wherein the team would visit your office. They will interact with your inspectors. They will go through the competence document, competence file of the inspectors, as well as they will go through the client files which had been inspected earlier. And in the conclusion of those initial office assessment would be reported. And there may be some non-conformities also, which could be in the form of critical NC. There are some categorization of the NCs and concerns in NABCB system. One is the critical NC, other is the major NC, and the minor NC and the concerns. And these concern NCs and have to be shared by the team with you for taking the appropriate actions for disclosure within the stipulated time frame. As because there are timelines for each and every stages. If you see at the right side of the slide, the timelines are defined, and this timeline is for not only for you, for NABCB also to to meet these timelines. So once the initial office assessment is completed and all the findings in the form of NCs and concerns have been addressed by you, then the team NABCB's official would ask you to offer the inspection for the witness. So for because there are minimum two witness assessment are required for one group of scope, or a single group of scope initially. And in that case also, what happens, the team, NABCB team would directly witness your inspectors who are performing the inspection at the client site. And finally, there may be some findings from our team on your inspectors in the same critical NC, major, minor, or concerns, and that again has to be addressed by you within the defined time frame. Once the office assessment is completed, witness assessment is completed, the team leader would, and the findings are closed for both office and witness, then the team leader would be requested to make a compiled report, and that report will undergo a technical review process of NABCB, which would be done by an independent assessor or independent expert who has not participated in the assessment process. And after the technical review, the reports would be placed to the accreditation committee in the form of recommendations, which is again an independent committee which have neither participated in the assessment nor in the technical review process. and wherein the decisions on accreditation for your inspection body would be made. Once the decision is taken in your favor, then the decision would be announced by NABCB, and you need to pay some annual operating fee and sign the agreement with NABCB. After that, the accreditation certificate will be issued to you. So this is the entire accreditation process. So along with the application, when you submit the application, what are the various enclosures you need to enclose? Like you need to enclose a copy of the registration certificate or any memorandum of or article of associations. You need to enclose the master list of documents, quality manual, which have been developed in accordance with 1720. Then also the procedural manual, procedures including technical document, formats, checklists. The duly filled in cross-reference matrix CRMs, which I was talking about, which is to be used by the assessment team to do the DRR document review process. If you have any branch offices, you have to declare in the application form. What are the activities you are doing from that branch office? You have to also mention that. And the scope of accreditation for which you are seeking accreditation had to be properly, formulated or made in the application form. The list of managerial inspection personnel also required. Then copy of business liability insurance to be enclosed along with the application. Any inspection contract specimen copy have to be appended with the application form, or any recently issued inspection report or certificates, just as a specimen. You have to enclose along with the application, or any inspection mark as specimen if you have a registration certificate, you can enclose along with the application. This is some documents you have to attach with the application form when you submit the application. So this is the document which is available on the website. You can refer for the fee structure, DCB F002. So there are various components of the fee structure like application fee, then annual operating fee, then the mandate charges for the assessor. You can go through in detail by going through this document available on our website. So this is the IB scope in the application form, how it should be. So this is the field of inspection. As I told you, what is the field of inspection? Field of inspection could be a product, design, it could be an installation or the process or the service. And the range of inspections, like it is initial inspections or the final final inspections, the finished product inspections, or in-process inspections. By using what method or the standard you have to mention. It's all been explained. Field of inspection. By using which method, standard, and these all have to be defined in the application form under the scope of accreditation section. See, where the inspections are carried out in accordance with the QAP, which is provided by the client. The standards referred in the QAP has to be clearly identified in the scope. This is how their scope should be. Inspection field, specific item, then stage and range of inspections by what is the inspection regulation standard of the methods. And if you have any branch offices, you also have to declare here. Office where competence for each scope exists. There are various notes given. It's just for your ease of understanding to fill this scope format. So this is all about NABCB accreditation criteria and NABCB accreditation procedure. Thank you for your patient hearing, and I'm sure you may have some questions in your mind. Please put up in the chat box. We'll take up one by one in the last session. Thank you once again. I just pass it on to Mr. Ajay Sharma for the next presentation.
Thank you, Anna. And we come to the last presentation. So this presentation is on the benefits and uses of the accreditation. So a lighter presentation, which would be of interest to you. we've been talking of inspection and accreditation. Let's understand what is conformity assessment. It is a process to demonstrate that a specific requirement, which can be for a product, a process, system, personal, body. So a process to demonstrate that a specific requirement has been fulfilled. And what is the advantage? What is the purpose? To ensure or help the customer to select the product, process, or service. What are the main conformity assessment activities? The testing, which is basically determination of one or more characteristic of an object of conformity. Inspection, it's an examination, and determining the conformity with specific requirements. Certification, it's a third-party assurance, always, that a product, process, service, management system, organization will conform to a specific requirement. And validation and verification is a confirmation of a claim. What is it about? That the claim is meeting the requirements either for a specific future use or for a past activity that has been completed. So these are the four kind of conformity activities that are there. Now, a bit detail on the testing. So it involves laboratories. Whenever say we are doing testing, so testing will involve laboratories, which can be either testing laboratory for the testing of products, food, drugs, some toys or metals, calibration. As per the, you have various equipments that need to be calibrated as per the SI unit, or a medical laboratories which test the human parameters. There can be different kinds of certifications. The certifications can be a process certification, for example, and global gap, which is a process certification, a personal certification, which can be basically in identifying and defining the competence of the personnel. For example, they can be yoga teachers, they can be welders, crane operators, or even plumbers. Product certification is the ISI mark, which is being used by BIS. So it's a popular kind of product certification. And system certification is a manual systems certification against various standards like 9001, 14001, 45,000, 22,000, and so on. So when we deal with the conformity claims, let us see how these are interrelated. So it is basically the in the extreme left, you have the object and the specific requirements. Then these objects can either be tested either by a first party, that is the manufacturer himself or the service provider providing service, or there can be a second party between the purchaser and the client, and there can be an independent third party, which can be a certification body, a laboratory, or inspection bodies. So the first party will declare a self-declaration of conformity. The second party would manufacture the product as per the contract, and the third party would provide an independent inspection, a certificate, or a report, or a certification. So it is here that these third-party inspection bodies can be accredited, and the accreditation body in turn they are assessed by the peers. How do you determine if a product or an equipment meets a technical requirement? So here are the various requirements and the conformity system activity. Taking an example from a mobile phone. For example, if the mobile phone as a device has to be designed, then the design has to be tested in a laboratory. The mobile has to meet the technical specification standard. How will that be done? So the samples will be picked up from the production lines and would be tested. And during the manufacture of mobiles, the quality management system which is in place will be assessed So that's basically certification of quality management system. Now it may happen the mobiles are placed in storage after manufacturing, so there can be some samples which will be picked up for inspection, or then can be distribution to local shops where can be this form of market surveillance. You pick up the samples from the market and check for their compliance, which is normally done by the regulators. Now we come to the accreditation. So accreditation is basically a third-party attestation of competence. And any conformity assessment body which performs the conformity assessment activities is a conformity assessment bodies. Activities we just saw here, which is basically the testing, calibration, inspection, manual system certification, persons, product, process, and services. Now we'll see the accreditation and international equivalence of this. How is the accreditation and in what way there are international equivalents to it? To understand this, first of all, we'll see what is the international ecosystem for quality. So at the extreme left, if you see, there are various products and services. Then comes the various requirements, the various standards or the requirements against which these products and services are assessed, or they can be tested, they can be analyzed, they can be inspected, certified, validated, verified kind of activities, which fall under either the certification or the testing, inspection. Against the international standards wherein they are accredited. These international standards, again, in turn, they are recognized by international associations, they are harmonized, and there is a traceability attached to it. Now, the international associations can be the International Accreditation Forum, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation, ISO, IC standards. When we talk of accreditation standards, there are various accreditation standards for various conformity bodies. Apart from the 17011 standard, which is basically for the accreditation bodies and not meant for the conformity bodies, 17020 is basically for the inspection bodies, 17021-1 is for the manual system certification bodies, 22003 is basically for the FSMS, 17065 is for the products, process, and service certification, 17024 is for the certification bodies certifying the personnel, 14065 is basically for the greenhouse gas valuation and verification, 17025 is for the laboratories, and that can be for testing and calibration, 17043 is for the professional testing providers, and 17034 is for the RFPs. Seeing at international framework, so at the apex is the accreditation bodies, which are peer evaluated. Then comes the conformity bodies, which are basically your inspection bodies, which are being assessed by the international standards. Then comes the product and service providers, which are basically the end users, which can be government, consumers, or the purchasers, against which the inspection is carried out as per some standard or some scheme or a regulatory requirement. Together, NABCB and NAPL form part of the international system of accreditation equivalence through the IEF, which is the International Accreditation Forum for the Certification Bodies, and International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation for the inspection and the laboratories. So this is the equivalence framework. So it's the equivalence in the sense that you have an ILAC and IAF at the apex level associations, wherein the multilateral arrangements are executed. Then there are regional arrangements, the associations which are basically the ES or the IAC, APAC, or the IFRAC, which are basically having the multilateral agreements at the regional level. Then comes the national bodies. That's the global vision of the IEF, uh, wherein it helps in providing a single program of conformity assessment, which helps in reducing the risks, and it builds the confidence to the regulators and consumers by extra activities and services. Now, this helps in a way that the free trade goal is tested, inspected, or certified once, is accepted everywhere across the world. And what are the benefits of accreditation? So it provides, first of all, an international recognition, and it avoids retesting and inspection, thereby reducing the costs of the conformity assessment. So there are multilateral arrangements between the national election bodies, which is there, which provides confidence to further develop and enhance the government-to-government bilateral and multilateral international trade agreements. So harmonizing the conformity assessment procedures has great benefits in terms of eliminating the costly multiple demands of the testing and certifying the products. Then is the benefit for the regulators and the government organizations, because this accreditation gives confidence to the products and services which are being regulated by them. Accreditation, since it provides the technical competence, regulators can rely on the accreditation and the prescribed third-party NABCB accredited conformity assessment agencies. So the key regulators which rely on NABCB accreditation are the PNGRB, FSSAI, DGCA, DGQA, BIS, and BE. Then their marketing advantages and increase in business potentials also, along with the customer confidence and the satisfaction. Basically, because markets are confident, they're getting the items meeting the requirement criteria. Suppliers are assured that their products or services are having the necessary criteria. Consumers are assured that the product services they are using meets the requirements. So the implementation of the NABCB accreditation helps in harmonizing the process, ensuring compliance to standards, and it also helps in strengthening the quality system as it involves periodic assessments. And this also helps in increasing the choice and range of goods and services available in the market, because they meet the relevant standards of the quality and safety. Brief on the NABCB, where we have various scope sectors, right from the food, then the chemicals, then the concrete, cement construction, the basic fabricated metal products, machineries, electrical, shipbuilding, aerospace, then the gas and water supply, construction, transport, storage, and many more. So these are the glimpse of the various the MLAs and MRAs that have been signed by NABCB, and more than 20,000 plus have the certificates been issued through 100 plus of the electric certification bodies, and 100,000 plus of inspection reports certificates have been issued through the 100 plus inspection bodies. This is a snap of the various government regulators and the multinationals and PSUs who are relying on the NABCB accreditation. That's the statistics of the various accreditations on the various management schemes, and the presence of NABCB across the globe, right, in terms of the Bahrain, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Mauritius, Nepal, Nigeria, Qatar, and UK. A brief on the QCI, which is established by the Government of India and industry. It is fully functional, autonomous, financially independent, under Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, basically the DPIIT, under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Set up in January 1997 by Government of India with SHM, CIA and FICCI as the key industry bodies. And it was established as a national accreditation body to lead equality movement. And the chairman of QCI is appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. Mr. Jexesa is the chairman, and Dr. R.P. Singh, the Secretary General of QCI, having the mandate to provide an accreditation framework, spread the quality movement nationally, provide the right and unbiased information on the quality and religious standards, represent India's interest in international fora, and establish the quality of Indian products and services. That's the organizational structure, whereas the apex is a council followed by a governing body and the Secretary General assisted by the Secretariat. 4 accreditation boards, NABCB for the certification, inspection, validation, verification, NABL for the laboratories, NABH for the hospitals and healthcare providers, and NABT for the education and training. Then there's a quality promotion board, the NBQP, and a special projects group with the PPID, the PAD, and the Z divisions, catering primarily to the government projects. That's a snapshot of NABC website where you can get relevant informations on inspection bodies and other activities of NABCB. So that was all on the presentations for this webinar. So we thank you all for the patient hearing and would like to take up any questions you would have.
Only 2 questions are there. What I see, one is, do a IB need to have a quality manager to look after management system requirements, in addition to the technical manager and deputy and inspectors? I think there is most.
Do the IBs need to have a quality manager?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, the inspection bodies do a lot of inspections wherein quality aspects are involved, and accordingly, to cater to the quality issues, looking into the systems requirement and the inspections involved, there has to be a quality manager who looks after the quality aspects, the systems and documentation aspects, and the overall management of the 1720 standard in the inspection body.
And another question is, sir, is the inspection report or the certificate of unaccredited IB acceptable?
If the inspection requirement is for an accredited inspection, the inspection report or certificate of an unaccredited IB is not acceptable to the client. However, if there are unaccredited inspections, the unaccredited IBs can issue their unaccredited inspection reports or certificate. But we would like to clarify one thing. Once an inspection body achieves an accreditation, all the inspections and the inspection report certificates that are issued by the inspection body are deemed to be accredited inspection certificates. So that's the difference that should be notified.
Other questions, sir? Testing is done at NABL accredited lab. Please provide more information how a IB would carry out testing specific food and drugs. I think Mr. Das, your question is not very clear, but what I could understand from this, you wanted to know how you have to carry out the testing for the food parameters or drugs as a part of inspections. So there are a number of labs under NABL accreditation for the testing of drugs, pharmaceuticals, and food. I think more than 200 to 50 food laboratories are there. And you can get the details of their scope also from the NABL website. And you can select of that which lab is best suited for your purpose. You can get the testing done at those labs. Is testing for food grade can be done through outsourced laboratory, or it should be under NABL? See, I think I've explained this in my presentation. Whenever you decide to subcontract, or you have used another terminology, outsource the parameter to a laboratory, you have to establish that whether that laboratory is in compliance with the requirement of 1725, or it should be accredited as per 1725 or NABL accredited laboratory. So it can be done, it can be subcontracted, but only thing you need to comply the requirements of the subcontractors whenever you decide or intend to avail those services. And the requirements of which is defined in BCP 110, that is the accreditation criteria. Go to the policy on subcontracting, which defines some requirement, which have been explained by me also in the presentation. You need to establish the competence of those laboratories where you are outsourcing or subcontracting that testing of the food grade. Or if it is accredited as per NABL or accredited as per 1725, you have to ensure that that laboratory is accredited for that particular scope for which you intend to do testing in the food grade. Next question. Is there any standard document describing educational qualification and experience requirement of inspectors personnel of each scope?
As such, no, there is no standard document which will tell you what are the educational requirements and experience of the inspectors, because what is happening is the inspection scope or the sectors, industrial sectors in which you carry out the inspection is decided by you. And even in a specific industrial sector, there can be level and different grades of activity that would be carried out as part of the inspection. So depending upon the complexity of the activity of inspection, depending on the industry sector which you are catering to for inspection, the inspection qualification experience needs to be defined. So there's no single standard or even standard at all which describes such qualifications for inspectors.
I think there's no more questions.
Any participant who would like to ask some more clarifications or queries?
One more question, I think so. Yes, we are the ISO 1725 accredited testing laboratory. If we are going for 17 or 20 accreditation, do we need separate quality manuals with documents and a staff for getting 17 or 20, or we can use the same quality manual and document and staff?
So we understand that you are a 1725 accredited lab. You want to go to 1720 accreditation. It will be better if you keep the quality manuals separate. However, even if you have a single quality manual catering to the requirements of 1720, should not be an issue. However, as far as your question on the separate staff for getting 1720, that you have to look into whether the existing staff have the relevant education, qualification, and inspection knowledge. If your testing staff can meet the inspection requirements also, and he's competent as per the requirements of 1720, you can have the same staff catering to testing as well as inspection. But otherwise, you need to maintain the competence either through a single staff or a separate staff.
And the question is that, sir, is for inspection, is there any country regulation is also taken care?
Inspection is a very wide field. So, as such, there is no single regulation which defines inspection in general. We have government and we have regulators which specify extra inspections for their specific areas, and thereby it is regulated. So, yes, we have specific regulators and government notifications which are requiring the extra inspections, but for specific areas, not in every.
Another question, sir. We are a partnership firm. How do we get certified? We are in third party field for past 5 years. So I think we do not accept as on date the partnership firms as an inspection body or the certification body, but you can get it, converted to private limited. If it becomes a private limited, then you can apply to us as an inspection body. So frankly, we are not accepting currently the partnership forms as an inspection body. The minimum requirement for those who inspect the food products. I didn't get the question. Minimum requirements. Minimum requirements for those who inspect the food products. See, this is up to you. You have to decide. You have to develop the competency requirement of your inspectors for doing the inspection of the particular food products. NABCB is not going to tell you this is the requirement, that is the requirement. You have to decide based on the educational qualification and experience of your inspectors while allocating the particular inspection scope to them. And because you have to monitor them also as a part of performance monitoring of those inspectors. So this is your priority to define the minimum requirement, minimum competence requirement for the persons or inspectors who are doing the inspection for the food products. In order to conduct green audit for education institutions as per MAC requirement, which NABCB scope should we apply for? 28.
Yeah, scope sector 28.
Scope sector 28, you have to apply under scope sector 28 for the inspection of the green audits under 17 or 20. I think we have a separate policy also of NABCB policy for the accreditation of the green audits, inspection bodies. You can directly write to us. I just write on the mail ID. I think you can correct one to one to Mr. Ajay Sharma for the green audits. How scopes of accreditation will be verified during audit? Is it mandatory to have purchase orders for all scopes?
See, during the office assessment, I'm putting it this way, during the office assessment, the assessment team of NABCB will be looking at few of the purchase orders and the executed purchase orders, wherein you would have completed the inspection and you would have followed the process of inspection, which we had just discussed in the 1720 standard requirements. So, against these scope sectors that we have applied, for each scope sector, they will be picking up some purchase orders for which inspections have been completed on a sample basis. Go through those purchase orders, files, inspection reports, and other requirements. Talk to your inspectors and see how the competence is established, how the inspection has been carried out, what are the inclusions and exclusions in the inspection report, how it has been issued, what's the monitoring of inspectors, what's the review mechanism. So all these things would be for a particular scope sector. This is how the inspection would be carried out. And yes, it may happen that you may not, if you apply for 5 scope sectors, for example, you may have a purchase order only for 3, but for the balance 2, you may not have the purchase orders. That is acceptable. Maybe you would have the competent people who can be interacted and some conclusion can be drawn from there. there's a question of what if we have not performed any such scope earlier. You need to establish the technical competence and your capability that you are you'll be able to perform this inspection. Preferably, if exactly for the same item of the product, if not for a similar kind of item of the product. So this is how, and with the help of the interaction with your inspectors, it can be concluded whether there is a technical competence available for that particular scope or not.
Yes. I think we're done with all the questions.
Yes.
Questions in the chat box. So, okay, all the presentations, PPTs would be uploaded on the NABCB website by tomorrow. You can get access from there itself. You can download it from the website itself. Is there any internal audited program? See, NABCB doesn't conduct any internal audit program, but we have another division that is called as TCB, Training and Capacity Building Divisions of Quality Council of India, which conducts regular trainings at various standards. And you can go through QCI website, go to the TCB, Training and Capacity Building Division. You'll get the monthly calendars or some calendars of training calendars where you can choose the trainings and the courses for which you would like to do. But as NABCB as such, there is, doesn't conduct any kind of internal audit program. I think that's all, sir.
Yeah.
For today,
so, we would like to thank all our participants for the patient hearing, for their valuable comments and clarifications. And we do hope that you would have benefited from this webinar series.
yes.
And in case you have any further specific clarification queries, you can always reach out to us at the email I mentioned there. So thanks a lot for the participation of one and all. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.